Good morning, great souls. Thank you for coming this morning, and a special welcome to those of you who are our guests here or who have come from a far distance. We really are happy to be here and share this with you this morning.
Or trudge through the snow.
So we'll begin with a reading from Rays of the One Light, which are weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita written by Swami Kriyananda. This week's reading is on reincarnation, the spiral staircase. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, Jesus Christ tells us, "Him that overcometh, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out." There's a difference between church dogmas, which are based on reasoned deduction from scriptural statements, and the pronouncements of wisdom, which are based on the inner realization of scriptural truths. Reason, like a train, can only follow already existing tracks of human experience. Human memory, being short, is seldom able to cross back over the threshold of a person's present existence. Biblical references to previous lifetimes on earth are overlooked in the deductive process, and we find them therefore excluded from the body of official dogma. Nevertheless, such references exist. The Bible itself presents them, as does Jesus in this passage, not as abstract teaching, but as direct, personal perception of truth. In the same way, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita silences Arjuna's reasonable doubts on the subject, not by reasoned argument, but by the frank statement contained in the 4th chapter of that great scripture. Arjuna, you and I have passed through many births. I know all of them, though you, O chastiser of foes, recall them not. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning. I'd like to read from Whispers from Eternity. Father, swimming in the sea of my craving for thee, I found myself beaten by the winds of severe trials, floating on cresting waves of pleasure and pain, then sinking down in the depths of indifference. I will keep looking for thy shoreless shore. With every stroke of my powerful prayer, I move nearer to thee. Never shall I give up, thou myself. I know that thou dost look for my coming. Reincarnation is the process of spirit coming back to itself. Paramahansa Yogananda talked about how wonderful it is because we get a new opportunity with each incarnation. We get to get rid of the old rickety car and get a brand new model. And we see that, we've had older relatives, we have friends where it just gets difficult. Things just get challenging, and the race has been a long race. And God just gives us a whole new opportunity where it's our enthusiasm that's so important, and a person's will. How engaged can that person be? Anandi was talking to me yesterday, just remarking about this story that we had heard when we had first went to Japan. It was about this messenger that had to bring a message to the emperor, and he ran, and he had to run for days and days, and finally he was able to appear before the minister, and he had the message. And he put out so much effort to get there that they'd found that he'd been dead for 3 days. It's the messenger. And because he just had so much will. And Swami is just remarking on Swami just has so much will, and he has such a challenging body that he just keeps on going, and the body just keeps on going after him. And it takes that kind of effort if we're going to find God. Once Swami Kriyananda, he was really putting out a lot of effort to accomplish something, and things are very challenging. And the assistant said to Swamiji, well, shouldn't we be balanced? And Swami said, well, in theory, that's correct. But he said, I never knew a saint yet who got there without being unbalanced. And there's unbalance, and we have to take things into consideration in our own present reality. But it just takes that tremendous amount of will if we're going to really transcend and move beyond our karma. There's something that I had as a young child that I think is, I'm sure, across the board in human nature. But as a young boy, I had 3 other brothers, and we were all a year apart, and we were very active. And I had a sort of a theory that if you didn't get caught, there was no trace. And I remember one time we were swinging very heartily a machete in our house and around, and we cut down my mother's beloved tall plant. So my older brother took a wooden dowel, and stuck it in the stem, and then put the plant back on, and then taped it up with plastic tape. And then, of course, the whole top was dying. And my mother couldn't keep anything alive in the house, barely her 4 children. And so my mother was lovingly pouring water on the plant and putting fertilizer on it, and it still was just dead. Well, when Anandi, when she joined the Cornell family, an aunt took her aside and she said, Joseph, or Joe, I went by Joe, he looks very innocent, but I know that he was behind everything. And Divine Mother knows that we've been behind a whole lot. Master talks about a baby when it's about to be born. It has an awareness of its past. The soul makes plans for coming onto earth, and the baby's very conscious, and it's often the memory of the past that causes the baby to move around in the mother's womb, and there's a very intense prayer that comes from the child as it's leaving the womb. So much so that some children are pronaming as they come out into the world, but then they forget where they've come from, and we get very involved in physical matter. We express ourselves through a physical body, and we become identified with that body. There's a beautiful prayer that a colonel who was landing on the first wave of the D-Day invasion in Normandy in World War II. His boat was about ready to hit the shore, and he had a lot of responsibilities, and there was a lot going on the beach. And the colonel prayed to God, and he said, Lord, if I forget thee, don't forget me. I'm going to be busy today. Well, that's what happens to us when we come into a physical incarnation, is that there's just a lot of challenges, and where we have to learn how to use our physical body as a child. We eat, and we have identification with that body. It's very hard to be free of that, because we express ourselves through the physical body, and it's out and out war, in terms of trying to hold on to where we really came from, that we're a child of spirit. But God doesn't want us to remember the past. Master said that only until we have God realization will we want to remember all our past incarnations? Because there's just so much that has gone on, different illnesses and disappointments and challenges with other people. And Yogananda said that we would become overwhelmed. And if we remembered all those different things, we'd be discouraged. We wouldn't have any kind of will at all to be able to do things. We had maybe had a cancer, and then we have it again, and we would lose all hope just from having that memory. And so God in His benevolence takes that away from us. But every night He takes away the burden of the day, doesn't He, with sleep. And it's really important for us to remember not to go back into the past of our life. I'd like to try an experiment, one that Master did with a group while he was lecturing. And what I'd like you to do now is to close your eyes, and I'd like you to think of everything that you've done. Everything that you've done. Okay, we'll open our eyes. You haven't maybe been able to pass very quickly through your mind. But Master said that after doing this experiment with people, he said, those that were thinking of the negative things that you've done, the disappointments, their lives will be miserable. Those that thought of the good things that they've done, you'll be happy. And he used that just as an experiment of what are we dwelling on, because it creates a magnetism, doesn't it? For a magnetism of illness or something else by just dwelling on it. Master talks about how love attracts, friends, but also he talks about how a family could just be at war with each other, and it's just the magnetism of hating somebody else that draws all those souls into one family. And so he just talks about so much that the power of negativity. He wouldn't allow Swami just to have any sense of that negativity at all, just because of the attractive power. And this is what Master's doing with helping us just to forgetting our past incarnations, so that we have a fresh start. And he's taken all those past incarnations away, but he's given us the responsibility for this incarnation, hasn't he? And so in the same way, it's just very important for us not to just go back, but just to keep continuing looking forward and embracing the positive in our lives. Jaya, one of our ministers in India, he was teaching a class, and being a Westerner, the student asked him, he was an Indian man, it was a meditation class. He said, "What powers has this path of self-realization? What powers has it given you personally?" And Jaya just sort of paused for a moment, and he's Jaya's not a flashy person, very deep, and he said, "The power that this path has given me is to be happy at will. And what more could one want than that?" And Master says this is how to really get out of delusion and to be free of the need to reincarnate, because we aren't being trapped by matter. And Yogananda also said that we should just work more and more on just pleasing God and not the ego, and just not really being involved and invested in this material plane. There's a beautiful story that Master told of an emperor, and this emperor liked to kind of carouse at night on the town, so he sort of disguised himself as one of his subjects, and then he went to the local tavern in his kingdom. And he got into an argument with one of the customers, and he ended up breaking this poor gentleman's leg. Well, the innkeeper dragged him, the emperor, but in disguise, to the local judge. And the judge was getting ready to pass sentence on the emperor who was disguised. And he was starting to read off the statement and sending him to jail. And the emperor took off his disguise, and I said, "I am your king, and I have the power to send you to jail, and I deny you this right." And well, there's something that sort of feels wrong to this story. It's like this guy should get his comeuppance, and this is not right. And besides, our country, the United States, has been founded on the well-being of all its citizens. But Master said no. That when the pure child of God, throws off every sense of identification with matter, he can be totally free there, and he's above the law of karma, and that that's the whole purpose of the whole drama, is to just be free of any of identification from that for which we are not. And once we identify with our soul nature, we're free. As God is above his law of karma. And so that's all it takes. Paramahansa Yogananda said, one life, one lifetime, lived well, and you could be free. And so it's just getting to that point. And the way to overcome karma is, as Yogananda said, is pleasantly and calmly. And that means that you aren't involved and attached to it, but that there's a sense of freedom. I have had a few challenging weeks the last couple months, and there was at one point where I had a fever up to 103 and a serious infection, and the fever was so high that I was a little bit delirious. At one point, I felt like I had to hop out of my bed and deliver a message to Napoleon that he desperately needed. So I was a little bit, I don't know, maybe I was normal, but to me it seemed a little bit abnormal. But during that time, I also had a dream that there was a lot of truth with, and it sounds intense, but it had a very deep lesson. And out of all the different things that were going on, I remembered this, and I still remember it. But I was standing on a stairway, and this big hand, just much bigger than a human hand, pushed me down the steps. And I tumbled down the stairway, and I was just lying in a heap at the bottom of the stairways. And I was sort of up the stairway with this presence with a hand, and there was another person. And somebody said, "Look, there's blood all around his head," and turn him over. And so it turned me over, and there was my face that was just all white, and it had a cross of blood across the face. And it was just very, very strong. But the thing is that I wasn't there in my face. I was standing with that presence that pushed me down. And then another person, I think that was the guru. And I was looking, but it was like I was looking at my body, but I was standing with God and the guru, looking down. And I just felt like, well, of course, we all have to take up their cross. And, and the body is a cross, and it will give us challenges. This world is imperfect. And the way to be free of the challenges, we can be right in the midst of it and feel every moment of pain and discouragement and limitation, or we can stand and rise above it and identify with the divinity within ourselves, and it's our choice. And we can find that freedom if we choose to. And it takes practice and will, and it was more instructive for my part rather than a sense of a realization, but instructive in terms of how to approach what I was going through. There's a very, very beautiful story that Swami Shivananda told about a saint who lived in Puri. And he had chronic dysentery. And he was very devoted to Lord Hari, this saint was, in his devotions. And he was, it was just an intense, prolonged illness that this saint had. And he was being taken care of by his servant, but in the form of Lord Hari himself. And Lord Hari wanted his devotee to be free in this incarnation. And so he was lovingly caring for him as his servant to help him through this process. And then Shivananda said, "Oh, isn't it so wonderful that when the devotee gives us all to God, God is his servant taking him through and caring for him." And there's such a touching and beautiful story that is really the case. As Paramahansa Yogananda said, that the director of the universe, he knows what's best for us. He knows what part that we're to play. And and to just be able to really go with it and embrace it pleasantly and calmly is really the challenge. But more really, it's really the joy and is really the way for us to find freedom. About a year ago, we were having a class based on Swami's Material Success course, and we wrote a visualization about really embracing what life gives to us. And I'd like to end my talk this morning with this visualization. And I'd like you to close your eyes. Karma is an expression of divine love. Everything that comes to us is made specially for us by God, free from all limitation. Visualize the Divine Mother standing before you. See her eyes gazing deeply into your own, filling you with her love. Know that she is with you always. Think now of a karma that's challenging for you. See Divine Mother holding before you this karmic test. See her smile as she reaches out and offers this test to you with loving kindness. Reach out your arms and take a hold of this karma. Bring this karmic challenge into your heart. Accept this precious gift sent from the wisdom of the universe. Know that it is a perfect gift sent by Divine Mother to help your soul become free. In your heart, embrace this karmic test fully with gratitude and trust. This karma can help you raise your energy level and consciousness to where your godly nature resides. Focus now at the point between the eyebrows. See yourself rising to meet this karmic test and transcending its limitations. See yourself becoming free in God. Feel the bliss of being united with Spirit. Om. Peace. Amen.